Greetings. My favorite day of the week, Wednesday, because I get to see you and I don't have tea by myself. So always good to have a familiar face. Thank you so much for making time in your Wednesday to join me for coffee. And not only me, but Erik, who is amazing and you are going to love. I can't wait for you to meet him. But if you haven't already, and I say this every week, but I know everybody gets busy. If you haven't had time to stalk Erik, stalk him now. I'm going to drop a link in there. Don't worry, but stalk him because all of the sort of 101 questions, we're not going to do those. We're going to dig into the real stuff. So if you haven't stalked him already, please stalk him. And also, thank you so much. If you haven't already, let us know where you're from. I saw some Brazils. I saw some Pennsylvanias in there. Brendan, thank you for the awesome color compliment. I really thought I would bring it today because it's sort of a gloomy day here in Austin, Texas. And I thought the day might be gloomy, but that doesn't mean that we have to be gloomy. No. We can be extra loud to make up for the gloominess. I also have my cup, which I thought was really fitting given that we're in a global pandemic. This is going well, right? I feel like that could sum up a lot of the whole Zoom classes that resumed for kids going to school and month number, 7 now of this pandemic and working from home. So I saw this coffee cup and I was like, this needs to come home with me. But anyways, back to Erik. You are going to love him. He is a CEO. He is a speaker. He's been on all sorts of impressive lists like the Forbes 30 under 30. And just in general, he's a great dude. Just pure and simple, amazing human. So I'm so excited for you to meet him today. And welcome, Erik, to Wednesday Coffee.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
How's it going?
Good. It's actually
where are you in the world?
Santa Monica. So I feel like coffee is still kind of appropriate right now.
Caffeine is good any time of the day. I'm convinced.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Are you a caffeine drinker?
I'm actually not. I used to be, but I just found that not drinking caffeine, it's more level. Like I get it in the morning. Sometimes every once in a while I want that spike, so I'll do it. But the problem is I deal with the after effects. I need to sleep 10 hours after a day of caffeine. And I don't want to take up that much time in bed.
Although I do see a drink behind you, tequila. Yeah. So maybe that's your secret to success.
It was until COVID. And then I actually stopped drinking that too.
That's it. No caffeine, no tequila.
Wait, this is it.
You're on a Fiji diet only.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for taking time to join us for coffee and your Fiji water. Yeah, we appreciate it. I filled everybody in a little bit on what you do, and I also just said to stalk you because that's much easier. But I'm curious, you obviously have done a lot in the course of a very short amount of time. So I'm curious, how do you describe yourself? Is it entrepreneur? Is that the first thing that comes to mind?
Yeah, it is. But I also I shy away from if someone asks me, I usually just say I run a marketing firm and a venture fund. If I'm glazing over it, not trying to go into details, the word entrepreneur to me, a lot of times it's just such a broad and kind of BS statement. I'm an entrepreneur. Well, what does that mean? Because most people that actually run something, when you ask them what they do, they talk about the thing that makes them an entrepreneur. So that's generally my answer is just run a marketing firm. But if someone asked who are you as a professional? I'd probably say marketer.
Marketer. Yeah. But which word do you hate more, entrepreneur or influencer?
Oof. Probably influencer.
I hate me some influencer.
Yeah. I think influencer is a worse one. Yeah. Because again, it's another thing that what does that actually mean?
No. It may.
Where's the line? Is it 10,000 followers? Is it 100,000? Is it what is that line that makes you an influencer?
And to me, everyone's an influencer. I'm influenced. If you tell me to go listen to a podcast right now, I'm like, okay, Erik told me to listen to this. I'm going to listen to it.
Yeah. And I also wonder, a lot of people that call them influencers or when they say that's their profession, it's because they get paid to share things. And I get that. But then again, what level of income do you have to make to consider yourself an influencer? and maybe it's $1. Like then I'm an influencer actually, because I've definitely been paid to share things before. So at what point does that line get drawn? Or is it a lot of people that just get free stuff to post on their Instagram consider themselves influencers? Same thing. I've had that too. So I guess that makes me an influencer. Maybe that's the answer.
So you're a CEO of a venture fund, an entrepreneur, and an influencer.
Nailing it. Yeah.
You're
3 things I never dreamed about doing. So
I know. Well, did you always dream of being an entrepreneur? Were you that kid with like the lemonade stand or?
I was, yeah. It wasn't the idea. It was just, so my dad is an entrepreneur and his father was an entrepreneur. So I just grew up thought that's what you do. So it wasn't like the sex appeal of being a business owner. I just took it as face value. That's what people do. You take a job to learn something so that you can start your own business. So I had the lemonade stand. My first real success was at 8 years old. I started a Beanie Baby business and bought and sold Beanie Babies and made thousands of dollars doing that as an 8-year-old. So what? It was super fun.
Wait, you had this idea in your room where you're like, I have a valuable Beanie Baby. Someone wants it. Let me go on eBay or something?
So yes, that's how it started. But then I sold the first one and it was my first Beanie Baby, which I got as a birthday present the year before, was unraveling because I used it as a hacky sack. And someone on the spot offered me $450 for it. Again, 8-year-old. I'm like, what? So I sold it. And then I used that cash to start buying ones I thought were going to be popular and get hype and started trading them and spent about a year, I think it was, trading them and made, I think it was $4,000 or $5,000. And the whole reason was I wanted to start playing electric guitar and wanted a guitar because my name is Erik and the only other Erik I knew of was Eric Clapton. And so I went to my dad and said, hey, can I get an electric guitar? He's like, oh, you want a guitar? I'm like, yeah. He's like, good, get a fucking job. Literally verbatim what he said to me. And so I got to go figure that out. I was like, okay. And so that was my idea for a job. I'm going to buy and sell these things until I can afford a guitar. Blew past that. I did not buy a $4,000 guitar.
I mean, and did your parents just say as an 8-year-old, I can't even imagine yeah, post on eBay. Do they help you? I mean,
yeah, they didn't. I had friends' parents too that were helping me. My dad was a busy guy, so he wasn't driving me around to trade because I was going to swap meets and stuff. But I had a friend's dad that would help. And I remember when I sold that first one, I called my dad at the time from a payphone to tell him, and he said, stay right there. I'm sending a Brinks truck. Which I didn't even know what that meant, but I'm like, okay, I'll stay right here. He was screwing with me, but it was fun. And but yeah, they were supportive on that part. And then funny enough, after that, I tried to start my first e-commerce business when I was 12. And I went to my dad and said, I need a seller's permit, but I need you to co-sign for it. And he went, absolutely not doing that. And so that was the end of my next entrepreneurial endeavor.
Wow. I mean, it sounds like you were very much a self-advocate of the things you wanted to do, whether it was to your parents or your friends' parents. You just always had that, I guess.
And I always had that, but I also got a good push. Again, my dad could have easily just bought me the guitar or been wait till your birthday. He's like, oh, you want something? Go learn it. Okay. I think all kids, unless you have some conflict with your parents, I got along with my parents. So when my dad said something like that, and he said it with a lot of confidence, I was like, all right, I guess that's what I'm supposed to do. If you say get a job, I'm going to go get a job.
Right. But you knew I'm going to make my own job, I guess is the difference. Opposed to
as an 8-year-old, I knew I didn't have other options. I actually remember knowing that it was illegal to hire me in a store or a restaurant. So I couldn't do that route.
Right. You're like, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
Must think of something else.
Exactly.
I'm curious. So that sort of self-advocating and that sort of, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get this. Obviously, to anyone who doesn't know or didn't stalk, Erik has won a ton of awards. I mentioned Forbes 30 under 30, et cetera. A lot of those, do you sort of self-advocate to get, or do you see something you're like, I'm going to get on the Forbes list. I'm doing that.
Some. We got one yesterday that came out of nowhere that was super on LinkedIn. So
I saw that.
I did not know that was coming. I have no idea where that came from. Our PR person said, hey, I got this email asking for a quote from you. I'm like, I thought it was we both know there's a lot of sort of BS lists out there that come out all the time that think, sure, it's nice to be on, but they don't mean much. So I thought it was another one of those. It was like, yeah, here's my quote. And then saw it get published. I'm like, wait, this is a legitimate list. This is awesome. So that was a really cool one recently. But yeah, no, we self-advocate a lot, just to be honest. The Forbes under 30 list I met Randall, who runs it, when I was 29 on Summit at Sea, where we met. And then I met, I met him. Then I talked to a friend that knew the whole team that said they're going to advocate for me too. So that got me through like the first stage. And then it was a judge stage. At that time, there were 3 judges. And then it was luck. All 3 judges were clients of mine. So it was like, the people they have never heard of. And then I pop up and all 3 know me personally. Like sheer luck, but it's what happened. Plus a little bit of a nice move by the person. I didn't nominate myself. I got nominated by my employee. And he put me on the Hollywood and entertainment list instead of marketing or retail, because we were doing a ton with Hollywood and celebrities and helping them launch brands at the time. And so, and again, the judges were 3 clients of ours that were like Kelly Osbourne, Shonda Rhimes, and the guy from Legendary that I'm blanking on his name, of course, the guy that founded Legendary Pictures, and all 3 we had done business with. So it was like one of those just stroke of luck. It wasn't even my industry in a lot of ways, but because we were unique on that list. So yeah, that's the truth behind Forbes 30 Under 30. And a lot of those we submit ourselves for awards constantly. And
I think that's important, because I think a lot of people, and it's something that I sort of admit, and I didn't realize it was such a dirty secret. Like when I first said, oh, I nominated myself for something, people were like, oh, you did? Like you nominated yourself? And I was like, well, yeah, I'm not going to sit around and wait to be asked to the dance.
Yeah. Yep. No, and I think, I mean, it's funny. My wife has told me that she learned a lot about this from me. Like no one's going to be a bigger cheerleader for yourself than you. And there's a balance of like just bragging and then celebrating. But I think as long as you're doing it in a sort of like celebratory way, it's okay to be your own advocate. And that's for an employee or an entrepreneur. Like I always tell our own employees, like you've got to brag to me about the work you're doing, about the good things you're doing, or I'm never going to see it. Like I do the best I can. Like now we have a whole bunch of systems in place so that our clients are encouraged to tell us when our people are doing well. But generally I need to hear it from our team. So we do things, what we call weekly wins, where our whole team submits all the cool things they're doing on a weekly basis so that we can all see the good work we're doing. Because generally, like any business, we're more dealing with the problems. So you can a lot of times, when everything's falling apart because you have 2 angry clients, you forget that like for our business, we have 500 total clients. 2 angry ones is really not that bad of a measurement.
You're like the 2 angry ones. That's a win.
Yeah.
That's a win. Right. I feel like, yeah. And it's something that I talk about all the time, that, you know, you have to talk about yourself like your best friend talks about you. Because I'll rave all day long about my best friend. She's smart. She's funny. You know, she does this, she does that. And then you talk about yourself and you get really awkward. You're like, people
have to be modest. And I think there's something to be said about modesty in the right environment. But I think like most people that know me, like we're connected on social. I post every single day about something we're doing at Hawke. It's not because I have some emotional charge to brag and that it's like an ego play at all. In fact, it's a little exhausting, but what it does is it keeps us top of mind, reminds people that we're doing good work, creates third-party validation for us. Like it's tactical. There's a reason to do it that helps your career, helps your business. And so that's why we do it. And that's why, and the people that get that, you know, benefit from that. There's plenty of businesses that don't do that do just fine, but it's another way to drive business for yourself.
Well, and it's marketing. You're not only marketing the company, so that's one thing, you're marketing you. And I tell people all the time, even if you're an entrepreneur, you are in the business of marketing yourself for like a date or a job or a promotion. Like you're in the business of marketing you. What would you say to someone who's like, I get it. I get what Erik's talking about, like marketing the business or marketing yourself, but I just think it's too hard. Like it's too hard.
Anytime I hear that, it's like, it's all hard. Life's hard. Get over it. Like that's the sincere answer. Like it isn't like it reminds me, again, my wife's a good teacher too. I used to tell her that like, I haven't had time to work out recently. Like I'm generally pretty good about staying in shape, but I was like, I have had no time to work out. She's like, no. You're not making time. Like, yeah, super simple statement, but totally fair and stuck with me on a lot of things where it's like, yeah, I get that it's hard, which when I hear hard, I mean, it takes time. It's not hard to post on social media. I don't think anyone's actually challenged by trying to do it if they make the time to do it. What's hard is making the time and keeping consistent. And again, if you prioritize it, you prioritize it. If you don't, you don't. Like, and you just have to make a conscious decision. Don't act like a victim that it's so hard, so I can't do it. Just make a conscious decision on whether it's a priority or not, because plenty of people aren't going to use those channels, and that's okay.
Well, and it's hard, I think, making time is such a great point. Like whether it's working out, like your wife said, or, I love this question that Jeff just asked, do you start a venture fund and then have Hawke meeting? Like, you have to make time to not only work out, have your wife, have a life, have friends, and run a company and start a venture fund. Like, why on earth did you do that? You were already so busy.
Yeah. So that's just personal nature for me. The moment I have downtime, I'm doing something. I'm launching something. It's the moment I do I make a conscious effort to make myself obsolete over and over again in my own business. So I constantly, when I start doing something full time, I hire someone for it. We've been doing a lot of M&A. We bought 4 agencies, and I went, this is a really good channel to grow our business. Hired someone to run M&A. Not going to just take that on myself and keep doing it. Now we know this is something we should keep doing. Let's hire someone and do it. And so with venture, that actually came a little different. My first angel investment was in a company called FabFitFun that I'm sure you know, but they've skyrocketed. So I was in their first round. I've done really well with them. Still in the deal, so I haven't exited, but we're good. And so after that grew really fast, really quickly. They were friends. I told them that I didn't want to invest in startups. I spend all my time in tech and startups, and investing my money seemed like a bad diversification strategy. But then they basically said, we're not asking, we're telling you you're going to invest. You just tell us how much. Wrote a small check, regretted how small the check was to this day, just like any successful investment. But still, it's gone really well. I think I'm 50x plus in that deal. And so after that, I started looking at other deals and taking it a little more seriously. Ended up investing 7 times. And on average, over the past 4 years, we've 11x'd our investments. Sold a company to Salesforce, did really well. And that's on angel investments. So I think it's been 2.5 years ago, we hired a guy named Drew Leahy to run that portfolio. But also we were doing a lot of sweat equity deals where we would actually take equity in exchange for marketing services. And it turned out that almost all of those deals failed very fast. So it turns out someone's willing to give you a big chunk of their company to do some marketing. They probably don't have a lot of ambition or a lot of value of their own company. It's usually a bad sign. So the basic feedback I got was, let's stop doing that. But our investments are doing well, so why don't we raise a fund and actually take this seriously? So we sought out to do it and developed our thesis a little more in a disciplined way around mostly investing in marketing technology that complements what we do. Because as I mentioned, currently we have about 500 active clients. If we know there's a piece of technology missing in the space, we can not only invest in it, but then deploy it across a ton of clients, and it's out the bat successful. So other than that, and the other part of the thesis is we work with tons of consumer brands. If we see an outlier, we want to be able to put some money in. So yeah, we've raised most of the fund now. It's been a year. We've invested in 9 companies out of the fund. We've already, on paper, basically made the money back. Not made the money back. On a couple investments, we've made the money back. So it's, going really well. And we plan on scaling that too, because the combination of the two, we basically end up owning our ecosystem. So we're major investors in like the top business intelligence tool for e-commerce, the top SMS platform called Postscript, all these different tools that we use, but also their ecosystem and our ecosystem overlapping makes us both stronger. So.
And I'm curious, obviously you've hired someone else to do the M&A deals, which is smart, replacing yourself, like the most genius advice ever. But where do you see wide open spaces, whether it's in marketing right now or the industry? If someone's joining us today that is like, where's the big blue ocean? Where are you seeing it?
Yeah, I would. So I don't know, I'm always careful of the big blue oceans because it turns into gold rushes. I think VR is back to being something interesting. I thought that industry was going to die like it did the last time it came around a decade ago. But then
totally,
with being isolated like this, I've seen VR really pick up. And so I think there's something there, but I also know that there's a ton of snake oil in it, kind of like cannabis and crypto and all these other industries where there's at the core something good about it, but it attracts so many gold rush seekers that I think most of those industries, you have to be really careful when it's supposedly a big blue ocean. I think most successes are actually just tweaking an existing model, not launching a whole new industry.
That sort of stuff, like the crypto and just to me, it also feels like kale and kombucha. We're all on the kale and kombucha train for a while, and then it's like, what are we doing? Kale tastes like crap. Why are we eating this?
Yeah. No, exactly. What was it? Tulips back in the 1600s or whatever. It's like tulips became valuable for a year and then completely fell off. And the graph looks like Bitcoin when it spiked. So it's really funny, but don't get me wrong. I think there's probably some longevity to crypto in some way. Do I think that the US dollar is going to be replaced by Bitcoin next year? No. I think that, who was it? Tim Draper that said it'll be $250,000 by December 2020. That seems unlikely right now. So yeah, I think that, and the problem is with a lot of these industries, the people that'll benefit from it are making these grandiose statements because it should drive success for them. You see it with anything on the news when it comes to the stock market. Whenever someone's speaking about the market, they're incentivized on it either dropping or increasing. So they're either going to talk about how great it's going to be and trying to get it to increase. So you have to remember that it's loaded, and that's like any of these industries. So cannabis too. There's a lot. Obviously, cannabis is a real product that benefits a lot of people, but I'd say 90% of cannabis companies have no idea, don't know anything about what they're doing. They don't know how to run a business. And the 10%, we work a ton in that space. The 10% are awesome. There's companies like Golden State that is like, they really know the science. They've built an amazing brand, an amazing company in cannabis, but it's a real business. It wasn't guys that are just stoned and then decided like, let's be in this industry too. Right. I think they do smoke, but they know to stay clean when they're actually working.
I mean, that's important. When you look at these companies, like the one you just talked about, I love this question from TJ. Like, what's the best advice that you have for somebody who's trying to place a valuation on an investment or a company, or does this look like a good opportunity or not?
Yeah, if you're talking about your own company, it really, the thing you have to be careful of is overvaluing your company so that it becomes hard to ever have an exit or a sale, because usually you're going to have hurdles to get over. So if you raise at 100 million valuation, you're going to have a certain hurdle of returns for that investor that you now have to sell your company, let's just say, at 300 million to even make money. So a lot of people think like raising a big round is so great and they all celebrate it. And it's a fallacy, because then when you want an exit, for you to make any money, you're going to have to return all that money that you made and the return on top of that, and then you get paid. So you're giving up a big chunk of those returns before you even get a dollar. And so understanding that it's, preferred returns is super important. So with valuation, it's market driven, by the way. It's really just what people are willing to pay. And so it just depends on the day, depends on people's appetite, depends on the investor you want, but it's not the only thing that should drive these things. Like I've seen early stage SaaS companies pre-revenue go from anywhere between a 2 million valuation and a 30 million valuation. And there's probably SaaS companies even higher than that. Again, the idea is, what is the opportunity here? And is there a likelihood that it's going to get over that hurdle rate really fast with the money you're investing? And so I would just, caution that a bigger valuation is always the best. And I know that it's hard to understand that. And even when I first heard that, I'm like, why not? Why wouldn't you want like a 50 million valuation, even if you're raising 500 grand, then they only get 1% of the company? That'd be great. It's like, no, because now you have to sell the company for a lot more than that to make the returns. So and
I think what's hard in these valuations, and I have to read everybody this quote because you said it and I love it and I referenced it a bunch, but you said, if you're trying to be too data driven in marketing, you can end up cutting off your nose. Yeah. And I think for a lot of startups or just companies in general, sometimes there is no data. It's like the magic sauce. I love like what Jen has done with Away. Yeah. Anyone who looked at that deal would have been like, luggage? Yeah. The market is saturated. You have Toomey, you have all these big players. Who are you? This, little girl, what are you doing in luggage? And now look, Away is everywhere. It's blown up, marketing at the forefront really of their success and Jen's brilliance with that. But you can't always look at the data, because if you had looked, that was supposed to fail and it didn't.
Right. And data, I think data is great to inform optimization, but like my favorite thing is when I hear like people say like, oh, Facebook doesn't work for my brand. And they have a very it's a luggage company or it's a fashion company or whatever. And it's like, oh, Facebook doesn't work for me. It's like you have to remember you're not that special. So like when Facebook doesn't work, it's not Facebook, it's you. And so like you kind of have certain channels, like it's like saying advertising or like marketing doesn't work for my business. Like that is a weird thing to say. And I love hearing, by the way, on that note, I always hear things like, well, Amazon doesn't believe in marketing, and Amazon is like a $10 billion marketing budget. So just to clarify that one. But I've heard that way too much from like,
just for reference.
But yeah, in general, I hear the same thing about Tesla. Tesla doesn't have a marketing budget. It's like, they don't have an advertising budget. They spend a ton of time on marketing. Their whole events that they throw, the way they design things, like there's a lot of marketing, their merchandising, all that is marketing. So anyways, when you want to look at kind of the data side of it, it's important to understand that like watching the data on how like a Facebook ad's performing is great to figure out where you should be placing your money and really thinking it through. But judging it whether like Facebook's going to work or not, or Google, that's the wrong way to think about it. Like in marketing in general, if you get your product or service in front of people and you can't drive revenue from that, you've got a bigger problem than that marketing channel. So you have to be working through all these things to make it work. It's not about does it work or not. It's not a binary thing. It's make it work. Find a way to make it work. And that's what I think a lot of new entrepreneurs miss when it comes to marketing.
And for somebody who's either at a corporate job or maybe they're in their startup and it's investors or their boss or something is asking for a lot of data or a lot of results, like what do you think is the right balance between historic data and trying something new? Because if there's something I've realized in this pandemic is that I've had conversations with clients who say, well, what's the historic reference point? And I'm like, Boo Bear, we're in a global pandemic. There is no reference point for a global pandemic. So you can take your reference point. Bing, like there is no reference. So like, how do you, because data is important and the companies obviously that you invest in and the metrics and the insights are important, but like, how do you just know when to like go for it? And like, there might not be data, or convince your boss maybe that, hey, I know there's no data with this, but like, we got to move forward.
Yeah. And I think that it is that conversation. Hopefully you can build enough of a rapport with your boss that they start to trust your gut too. I do it with my executives all the time where they're like, hey, like, I don't always have them report to me, like, what's the specific data point that we can do this? I ask for theses because I don't want to just hear like, I think this is a good idea. Why? Like answering why is important. I don't think but it doesn't have to be because we're 100% going to get a 10x return on this thing we've never done before. Like that's a stupid thing to assume too. I think it's important to understand in marketing, a lot of it has to do with testing and trying things, seeing the results, and then doubling down where it makes sense. So allowing for that and creating an environment, if you need to push back with your boss to make sure that you're allowed to take risks and make, decisions. And if it doesn't go well, that's okay. We'll learn from it and we're moving on. And again, for me, I always tell my team, I just want to know that there was a good thesis before you did it, that it's like, this is why we went down this path is because I believe this, this, and this. And if that's a sound thesis, we're good. And I think for anyone that's worried about like, their job security with something like that, just get buy-in from your leadership before you do it. Be like, hey, I want to do this. Here's why, here's what I believe, but it's a risk. So just want to make sure we're all on the same page. And we do that with our clients all the time. My team does it with me. Like, I think most people in business understand that there are risks to take, and you don't want to go all in on something. Like the whole bet the farm idea, I think is ridiculous too. Like try things with small amounts of budget, try incremental things. As your company grows, you can try bigger tests that, again, you should never have your like company success riding on a complete unknown, but you can definitely have dollars riding on unknowns. And if it fails, it fails. You lost some money, but if you are right, 6 times out of 10, then you should in general be able to advance the company forward.
Well, and that's why I think, shameless plug for Hawke Media right now, but that's what I think is so interesting about your company is that if you look at the traditional agency models, they're like, okay, you're going to pay Saatchi and Saatchi or whoever, and they're going to do everything, right? Like we're giving you the kitchen sink. And what I think is really interesting that you guys have done, going back to your thesis of like baby steps and like trying little things and it doesn't work or does it not, you can come into your team and say, okay, I don't want the kitchen sink, but can you help me with Facebook ads?
Yep.
And if that goes well, we'll experiment. Then maybe we start looking at more SEO plays. Then we start looking at like, was that something that you just felt like you weren't seeing in the space?
The whole mission of our company was like core from the beginning, which is accessibility to great marketing. So what I believed is there were many different aspects of working with agencies or hiring in-house that made it really hard to work with great marketers. And so the accessibility factor is a big part, which part of that is I don't need everything. I just need this thing. And like, we wanted to make that easy. We also are very adamant about, we're going to look and agree with you or not, whether that's what you need. Because a lot of people come to us for Facebook ads, but their website's never going to convert anything. So it's like, we want to make sure we're actually set up for success, and we push back sometimes. But yeah, we try to be, everything's a la carte, month to month, super simple, because the idea is we want it to be easy and accessible. And what we saw in COVID is it actually really helped us and our clients, because in March, when this all started, most of our competitors dropped like 60, 70% in their client base, because they all have these annual contracts and all these, all this overhead. that it's like when someone's trying to cut something, they're looking at this egregious spend and they're like, done. For us, we got calls with people that were in e-commerce saying, hey, we need to cut everything. We need to pause. We're like, okay, so just to be clear, your returns right now are just the same as they were before. Nothing has fallen off yet. So going back to data, everything's doing fine. You don't have to give us notice. Like, you can fire us next month. Like, just fire us when you need to fire us. But now keep going, because we don't know that this is actually going to affect you negatively. There's an assumption, but like you said, there's no historic data here. So let's see.
No.
Let's watch. Let's take it day by day, which most of our competitors can't do. And we're built to be nimble. So we did that. Turns out e-commerce in the e-commerce industry over doubled across the board in revenue in Q2 of this year. And so all the clients that listened to us skyrocketed, including some of our portfolio companies, et cetera. Like we ended up, on average, our e-commerce clients doubled their revenue. So just by sticking with it. Now, there were a few clients that didn't listen to us, that were scared and just decided to cut everything, and they're not doing very well because they now fell behind, and it's really hard they cut off their own oxygen. Because what's changed in marketing, a decade ago, marketing supplemented foot traffic and word of mouth and all these things that came into your store anyways. Now that everything's digital, your foot traffic is your marketing. And so the moment you cut that off, you literally just cut off your entire lifeblood.
Well, I was going to say, like, with the pandemic and everything moving to e-commerce and shopping online, where are your clients seeing the biggest success? Is it Facebook? Is it Instagram? Or is it just like good old fashioned funnels? You know?
The fun thing is, like, it all works together. So like Facebook and Instagram have been great because, at least, I don't know what the actual measurement is right now, but in Q2, the cost dropped 30% because all these big brands pulled out of Facebook and pulled out of their ad spends. And the big brands really drive the cost up because it's all a bidding system and a competitive system. So for companies that are focused on performance, they're going to keep the costs low enough to actually gain that performance. But big CPG companies and automotive don't care about performance, they care about awareness. And so they're just blasting out there, driving the costs up. When they all pulled out, it benefited all the e-commerce marketers massively. So 30% drop in cost, plus an over double increase in market share of consumer spending going online versus brick and mortar. It was just a massive opportunity. And it hasn't gone fully back either. The opportunity is still there. The cost is still low. And that's Google and Facebook. Where to spend really just depends on your product or service and what kind of things it's serving, et cetera. That's a very big topic, but yeah, Facebook and Instagram are good for any type of lifestyle or impulse buy.
Well, and I feel like what's interesting, especially with this whole pandemic, is you really have to be flexible. And that's kind of what I hear you saying. And also, I wanted to dig out a little nugget you said, because it seems, I think, to most people to be the antithesis of an entrepreneur or a capitalist, but you actually kind of slid in there that you say no to clients. Like, I'm not going to do Facebook ads for you if there's no way to win because your website's not set up for e-commerce. I think most people would be like, wait, did he just say he turned down business? Like, what? But I think that really shows, you're about the client win, not necessarily about your own bottom line.
It's not about our own bottom line. Client win, we want to make it a mutual beneficial relationship, but mutual is important. And which means that is true in terms of, like, we want to make sure they're going to benefit from our work. But I just fired a client 2 days ago that wouldn't stop berating my team and just literally just talking down to them for like 2 months. It hadn't gotten to me until the last minute. And then I got a series of emails forwarded to me that I'm like, yeah, we're not working with this person. Like, we have a rule. Like, we want to make this super easy and accessible for any type of business owner. We don't put up barriers. We make it super cost effective for them to work with us, but we don't work with assholes. And that was a big part of it. And this guy was, lack of a better word, an asshole.
Well, and I think that's why you've won. Again, if you already talked to Erik, you know this, but that's why you have won so many culture awards. You guys are like racking up culture awards. And obviously you just won the LinkedIn top startups in 2020. So again, congrats on that. But what is the secret sauce to, like, I mean, besides the no asshole rules, obviously, to building a solid culture, especially now in the pandemic when everyone's all over the place? It's
giving a shit. Honestly, I think that, like, and I got to be real, like, it's really much more my co-founder and my COO than it was me. In the beginning, he started talking about culture. I'm like, we have a ping pong table. We're good. Like, what do you mean? The term culture, when I started Hawke, I did not understand. And now I realize it is so core to what we do. And that's all that my COO cares about, is building a really solid culture. But, like, now we have, like, different ways. You really watch, like, there's so many different aspects to building a culture that I've learned a lot about in terms of like, there's a level of it that's kind of like Darwinism and evolution, where what you nurture is what progresses. So we went through a phase where we were basically all the people that complained and whined. We were hearing everyone and trying to be really open and really nice to these people. And then all of a sudden we had nurtured a culture of people that just complained and bitched all the time. So we frankly cut a whole team because we're like, we just can't anymore. Everything we do is a problem, and replaced them and went back to like, yes, we're here to help. We're here to be open, but like, you also have to work hard. There's things that we expect of you too. And that mutual respect side of it. And we've realized like it's a lot about nurturing the things you want to improve. And it's also, again, about caring. Like, I truly, sincerely care about my people's well-being and just creating a good place to work. And so does my partner. And the cool thing about our business, we're bootstrapped. So we've got about 170 people, but we get to, and I say this to my team all the time, we can do whatever we want. Like, legitimately, it might crush the business, might be illegal. We haven't really done either of those things yet.
Still time.
Yeah, exactly. But we sincerely can make any decisions. So I'm like, if you have a problem, come to me, because I do want to solve problems for my people. That is my job. And like, I think that culture for the people that feel comfortable, like coming forward, like the employees that we have that actually do take the opportunity to work directly with me or directly with my partner, they see like, yeah, we will absolutely move mountains to make this place a place that people love to work. Like, that is very important to us. And we will do. How
did your co-founder move you as someone who like didn't see the light? We have a ping pong table. How did you get to like, okay, I see the light now? Like, what was that? It's
always been a mutual respect where it's like, I don't know what you're talking about, but go for it. Like, it goes both ways, by the way. Like,
I don't know what you're talking about.
it really does go both ways. Like, there's things I've spent money on, or like, again, Summit at Sea, when we were 2 years into business, I think, and I'm telling him, I'm going to spend $5,000 and I'm going to go on a cruise out of Miami and go meet a bunch of entrepreneurs, and I think it's worth it. He's like, it's the same thing. I don't know what you're talking about, but go for it. And let me know, like, because that was a lot of money for us, but I was like, we're going to go figure this out. And so, yeah, it's those kind of things that there's just been a mutual trust and respect that and also an acceptance that we're both going to make mistakes and own them. And we're both smart enough to we trust that we each have a thesis, I think is what it is. Back to that point is like, we both know that we care enough about our company and each other that like, we're going to go do something, we're going to make mistakes, but in general, our head is in the right place and we're both smart enough to usually be right. And that's fine.
If somebody who's joining us today is in a company, so they're not the founder, but they are an employee, and they're like, you know what, the culture at my company kind of stinks. What would you suggest that they do to like an initiative that they can actually move forward to help that? Yeah.
So there's two things. One, the first step is the leadership. Culture starts with the top. So are your C-suite willing to change, and do they agree that the culture needs to change? And are you in what they envision the culture to be? Is it similar to what you want? Because if that's the case, then the next step is go approach them, talk to them, work with them, because they might not even know certain things are happening. Like, as the company gets bigger, a lot of times, like just like I was talking about with this asshole client, I don't know about it for 2 months. If I had known about it week one, I would have been like, get out of it. And it, then it got piled up. It caused 2 months of stress for my team. Like, and they didn't want to tell me because they were nervous. Even though I never get angry at my team, I still have the title of CEO. And just through what people are taught, I guess as kids or something, they're afraid of me. So, now they came to me and I'm like, oh no, like I literally chimed right in an email. I was like, I've informed my team to cease work with you. Feel free to give me a call directly. So that was an interesting phone call too. They called me right away and cussed me out and told me that they had recorded the call and they're going to make it go viral and tell everybody what a bad company we are. And I'm like, you aren't cool. Go ahead.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's the type of person my team had to deal with for 2 months. That's what I'm saying. And
did that rattle you, or were you just like cool as a cucumber?
For 5 minutes. I mean, it did when I was starting out, because you realize that, and this is just a number that I've kind of found, about 3% of people are assholes. And so when we have this many clients, we're going to deal with them. And we do our best to weed them out ahead of time. We do our best to get them out, in the middle. But
they sneak in.
Yeah, it's part of it. And, and so I've just learned you just kind of keep a level head and just be pragmatic about it. Don't let it get to you. And that's kind of running a business in general. Like, there's always a fire. That's the job of the CEO and the leadership, is to put out fires. Like, you're going to be dealing with the biggest problems. And it really hit both my partner and I about 2 years ago when we were like, if we just do this, then it'll be easy. If we just do this, then it'll be easy. And then I finally went, it was Apple. Apple's the biggest company in the world, and they're dealing with like trade wars with China and now antitrust law and all this and being sued by Fortnite. Like, it doesn't end. So get over the prospect that like the shit stops coming and just get comfortable with the idea that this is what you're going to do. On that Summit at Sea, Gary Vee said something that he says a lot of crazy things, but this one I really resonated. And he's like, running a business is like eating shit, and your ability to swallow is really what makes you a good entrepreneur. Really interesting, but I actually get it. Like, your ability to just take it and just be like, it's fine, and not let it get to you is a big part of it.
Well, and I feel like at the end of the day, like something I always say is there is no there. I'll be happy when I get there. When we get to that point, it's like, there is no there. It's like a mirage. It's never there. You're never going to be there.
Yeah. No, like, and that's where people say enjoy the journey. Like, it's all journey. It's always going to be. I mean, I forget, was it Ron Perlman? I just saw that his wealth just went from $20 to $4 billion over the past 2 years. Like, I don't know. I didn't read into it. I just saw a headline, but it was like, it's right. Just getting. So imagine having $20 billion going to 4. Almost everyone, I think, probably watching this goes, he still's got $4 billion, but I can tell you that is probably hyper painful. Imagine losing 80% of your net worth in 2 years after a lifetime of building it. Like, that sucks. It doesn't end unless the only way that you get really comfortable, I think, is you sell your company, you put the money in like municipal bonds or something, and you sit on a beach somewhere. For me, I'd be really bored, so that wouldn't ever work for me. But that for some people, that works just fine.
Something tells me you'd open up a coconut stand by day 3.
And then I'd be franchising
coconuts somewhere.
Yeah, I'd be franchising it a few days later too.
Exactly. I don't know how your wife would feel about that, but
she likes to work too, so we're good.
How do you manage that? I mean, obviously I got engaged in January, but like it's hard. Like, being an entrepreneur and dating, finding time to date, that's hard. And then also just like work-life balance in life. I mean, how do you do that? Yeah,
it started, like, I started my company a month before I met my wife. So she comes from private equity and just always had, frankly, a lot of respect for entrepreneurs. So it was really just, she was willing to go with the flow for while I was, in the beginning of building this, like, the workload was insane. And I still work constantly, but there's a little better balance. But like, yeah, it was just the other person being willing to make sacrifices for you, and vice versa. I mean, she works in PE. She has a ton of work too, but both of us always respected that. I think, again, it's the mutual respect thing is a lot about relationships, whether it's business partners, significant others. We both understand that our priorities, like, that we both want to build something. And so, there have been times where it's like, I'll see you when I see you. I'm traveling every week for 2 months, and we had a point where there were like 2 months last year of like, I'd come home at 10 o'clock, kiss her goodnight, and then she'd be out at 5 a.m. And it was like a lot of that for a while. But again, if you're at that point, we were already married. Once you get engaged, I think your view of like your relationship just goes way more long term, that like, even if I don't see you for a couple months, I'll see you after that. It'll be fine. Like, it's that kind of thing. And we also are building something together in that sense. In fact, we just got your
biggest piece of advice for me. You're farther along in the book.
We've made it 1.5 years in marriage. It's huge success.
Right. What's the secret? What advice do you have for me?
So we don't have kids yet. I keep hearing kids really change things. Nothing changed when we got married. When we got engaged, my mindset changed to like a lot more long-term focus. So instead of talking about like, well, what's going to happen next month, it was just like, what year are we going to have kids? What year, where do we want to live the rest of it? Like, those kind of like really big kind of planning, which also helped. Like, the little day-to-day mundane stuff didn't matter. Like, and there'd be times where like, I'd have another business meeting, another dinner, and sometimes she would get a little hurt by it, but it was like, and so then I would not do that one or not go to one. But now it's like, go do your thing. Like, I think part of it was also her mindset change, because now like truly my success is her success. So if me not being home for dinner one night, it's like, yeah, that's fine.
Do you talk in quarters? Like, okay, baby, Q2 2021, because that's when you've really mixed business and life.
Oh yeah, I mean, it happens. I mean, our networks overlap a little too much. Like, she works for a big she runs deal sourcing and business development for a software private equity fund. Our venture fund invests in software, so we actually have to be careful on some of that. There's actual like compliance law that we have to I have to disclose everything I'm investing into her fund, So there's a whole bunch of stuff that's funny about that. But yeah, we both have fun with that. We both give each other advice because there's also the dynamic of she works for a company and I run a company. So I a lot of times can give insight into what her boss is thinking, and vice versa. I go to her like, what the hell are my employees? And half the time she's like, oh yeah, that's reasonable because of this. And half the time she's like, that's ridiculous. Tell them to shut the fuck up.
You're still like, I got the ping pong table.
Yeah, exactly.
What's wrong?
We still have it. Even though no one's been in our office in 6 months, we still have the ping pong table.
I mean, that, but that counts for something, right? You got it.
Yeah.
That's there. Okay, because I have finished almost all my tea, it's like caffeine speed round time.
Tea, not coffee.
Now I'm all jittered up. Okay, what is the best app or something that you've started doing lately that you're obsessed with?
Lately,
yeah, like if it's waking up earlier or jumping rope or I don't know what.
Up until I broke my leg a couple months ago hiking in Zion, and I'm starting to get I'm back into PT. I got the cast off a couple weeks ago, but it's crazy how time flies. But throughout all of COVID, I got the Apple Watch as a gift end of last year, and I set my calorie goal to 900 calories when COVID started every day, and for 80 straight days I hit it. So it was like whether it's going out for a walk, So going out for a walk or going for a bike ride and doing a workout, like it takes some focus to do. But through COVID, because we're all working remotely and from home, I just forced myself to have that a little bit of a hard to attain goal so that I had to go out. Now, keep in mind, it's all weight based too. So like your calorie goal should be not everyone should be 900. I weigh about 170. So, but it was enough that it kept me in shape, but it also gave me something else to have a goal, but it was a health goal that was really nice. So I literally did it till the day I broke my leg. I did it every single day. But again, how I hit it was also I'd take 2 hours of conference calls walking through my neighborhood and walk 7-8 miles. There's ways to do it that aren't just go to the gym and work your ass off for an hour and a half. But that was a big hack because that kept me kind of focused and feeling good so that all the other stressors that were happening with COVID, when this hit, I thought it might be the end of my business. I did not have confidence that because we didn't have a high barrier to exit, that no one would fire us. I thought the opposite. Everyone can fire us tomorrow. Maybe they all will. So when this started, getting healthy, that's, again, no drinking, no caffeine, just trying to be healthy so that the only thing dragging me down was a little bit of stress at work. And it worked. I was able to focus, work really hard, do a bunch of cool things. And, here we are.
Well, I feel like that's very much like me. When I have a lot of stress, when a lot of this is going on, I'm like, I need something to focus on.
Yeah.
I'm like, exactly. That becomes my control.
Yep. I picked up way too many hobbies.
Who's she needs help. But for me, it was really, I need to get one. I'm Fitbit and Apple Watch lists.
Yeah, I waited until I got the EKG, and I thought getting data on my heart was actually pretty cool. That I don't even know what to monitor, but starting now and understanding actually having long-term health data on this is, I think, a really cool aspect of it.
Okay, so then what is the best gift that you've given yourself or done for yourself in the last year? Would it be the Apple Watch or something else?
No, it's mountain bike, which I haven't been able to use for a couple months, but I mountain biked when I was in high school a lot and then stopped because I broke too many bones. But I was downhill mountain biking, which is different. Now we do all the marketing for Diamondback and Raleigh Bicycles and their whole portfolio of bike companies. So I called the CEO. We've worked with them for 3 years. Called the CEO in April. Was like, hey, I got to get outside and do something. This is when full, lockdown. I'm like, there's not a lot of people out on trails. Most of them are closed. And so I was like, you want to hook me up with a bike? And he gave me the dealer rates as if I was a wholesaler. So I got to get a deal. So bought myself a bicycle, my business partner, my brother, and one of my best friends. And so we were all able to go biking together, which was social distancing, but outdoors and super fun. And I was, before, again, the break, I was biking 3 days a week in the Santa Monica Mountains and around LA and driving up to Ojai near Santa Barbara and going up there. So that was huge because that was something that fit the getting in shape thing, but also got to have a ton of fun. It's something, just like Steven just said, it's popular all over. So I actually jumped in the car and drove a few different places and mountain biked there. It was super fun.
I would like to remarket that to instead say that you're starting a bike gang.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a remarket, because you've got multiple bikes, therefore you have a gang.
You have a gang, 100%. By the way, they're all the same black bicycle, which is really funny too. We literally all have matching bicycles.
I'm telling you, all you need is a logo, and you've got yourself a gang.
I think I know a guy that can get a logo.
I think that's where we're going. Okay, what is your favorite podcast, newsletter, resource, human that you learn from that you're like, wow, I just learned that, and now I'm going to be implementing that in my life?
I'd say resource is YPO, Young Presidents Organization. Yeah. I mean, once you're at a level that you can join that, I think the minimum's like 13 million in revenue. It's insane. It's a network of 28,000 entrepreneurs that are all above the average revenue of the entrepreneurs in YPO is like $70 million. So like a lot of people that are doing a lot of really amazing things. And so I spend a lot of time. I'm on the board of the US region now, or the Pacific region. I'm on the board of the marketing network in YPO. I volunteer and help with our own chapter, with a bunch of other stuff, with the retail network. So I've learned so much through that group.
That's amazing. Okay. What is one thing that you need more of in your life right now?
I wouldn't do it just yet, but travel. I miss it. I was on a plane every other week for years. And so some of it, like work gets exhausting, and like having some downtime's been nice, but like we had plans to go to Rwanda and hike with the gorillas in May. And now that's hopefully postponed to next summer. And like a lot of different fun things we're trying to do, that places I want to see. We're still banking on trying to do Japan for New Year's and go snowboarding, but we'll see if that's allowed. It's going to be a last minute call, but.
Yeah, that's an audible.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay. Can you give me, and us, all of us, can you give us some homework? What is one thing that we should all try this week? Could be a food, a TV show, a breathing exercise. I don't know. But like, what is one thing that we can all do this week as your homework to us?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to go with what's really helped me is just move every day. Like set aside, I'm going to say an hour a day for movement. I know it's hard. It's, as my wife told me, you make time, it's prioritize it. But I really do believe that, as human beings, we're meant to be moving and moving around. And so it doesn't have to be a hard exercise. It could be go for a walk, but do something that you're actively moving for an hour at some point every day this next week.
I love it. It's a solid challenge. I want everybody to tag Erik and I. I will tag Erik when we all take on this challenge of moving our body every single day for the rest of the week.
Tag me on Twitter at Erik Huberman, and I'll retweet it to 250,000 people.
If that is not an invite or retweet, I don't know what is. Okay, but that brings me to, if people want to keep learning from you and hearing your thoughts, what is the best way? Is it Twitter? Is it LinkedIn, Instagram? Where are you at?
I'm on the four big ones, so Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. I'm on TikTok, but not that active.
I'm a lurker. I don't post, but I lurk.
I've posted, I think, 2 or 3 times, but we work with a bunch of the really popular TikTokers. So yeah, any of those platforms, it's just @Erik Huberman. Super easy.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. And also, I don't know if you know, but next week's going to be super fun. Do you get Morning Brew, the email newsletter?
Yeah.
Okay. Alex Lieberman, the CEO of Morning Brew, is coming on next week.
Oh, he's awesome.
He's amazing.
Yeah, we're doing a bunch of stuff. So next week we're hosting e-commerce week. So ecommerceweek.la. We have over 10,000 attendees coming into it, and it's all free. So feel free, but they're doing a partnership with it too, where we have a bunch of the big e-commerce brands all over the country doing different sessions and stuff all throughout the week. So
where can people find information about that?
Ecommerceweek.la or ecomweek.la, both go to the same site. And it's all free. We wanted to just make it kind of a give back. So we partnered with the city of LA, think like New York Fashion Week, but LA and e-commerce, but I had to go virtual this year, given what's going on. So next year, it'll be a big fun reason to come to LA the first week of October. But this year we're doing it virtually, but it should be.
It sounds like that's where I'll be the first week in October of next year.
Highly recommend it. LA is great in October. It's still warm. It's like late summer. It's awesome.
And October 5th is my birthday. So it's also just like birthday celebrations.
We got to throw a big birthday event.
Exactly.
Happy early birthday.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for joining.
Yeah,
so appreciate it. I know how busy you are. So thank you for joining us.
No, thank you for having me. And thank you everyone for watching.
Cheers. Sending a big cheers your way.
Cheers.